understands what we're doing. First of all, we are going to record this and it will go out to YouTube. So anybody that you know that was unable to attend, you can let them know if they go to the township's YouTube account, it will be available there. We can get it out to them in any way if we need to at some point. And it will also help us remember what we said. So, so anyway, I just want to let you know it's being recorded so that you know that up front. Because of that, if you're going to ask a question, we will either try to get around with you with the mic, or I will ask that you come to the other podium, make sure the mic is on so that we can hear. Because if we don't do that, then you can't hear it on the recording. And so, so that's what we're going to do with that way. So I'm assuming that all of you received the invitation. It was sent out to you from the municipal authority. If you didn't receive it, was mailed to everybody out, whether you received it or not. I know post office hasn't delivered all of them. At least that's what I've heard, because I've got a couple emails from folks saying they didn't get one. So let me kind of tell you what we're going to try to cover today. We're going to try to give you an update where we are, where we think we're headed, and hopefully answer any questions that you have. It's probably more time answering your questions than the information that we have to really give you a full detail on. So real quickly, my name is Steve Neese. I'm the township manager, but when you're talking to me today, I'm here as the Municipal Authority's operation manager. I get to wear both hats. So you probably know me from one or the other, but most of you probably know me as the township manager. Today, I'm here as the Municipal Authority operations manager. I have with me Mike Madron, who's the solicitor for the Municipal Authority, and Dave Porter, who's the engineer. My guess is most of you have talked to Dave at some point, just because there was a lot of work that was when the pipes were put in the ground in your location about where your connection would be and those kind of things. So most of you probably already know Dave. So I'm going to just let you know that we are continuing to move forward in getting SOAR in your area. The pipes are in the ground. It really is now a matter of getting the pump station up and operational that's in your area. And I'm going to ask Mike to come up and talk about where we are legally, and then we'll talk about the next steps from there.
Hi, everyone. You mentioned I'm Mike Madger. I'm the solicitor for the Sewer Authority. Relatively recent. I wasn't the solicitor of the Sewer Authority when this project started, but this thing has sort of a life of its own, and here I sit. So first of all, thank you all for being here in the middle of the day. I know it's not easy sometimes to get out and come out to the township at 3 p.m. So we appreciate everybody coming. I know everybody's got some concerns about how this project is progressing, and a lot of them have to do with some legal challenges that we faced. So I'm going to give you as much as I can on that without getting too deep into litigation strategy, because obviously, you know, we can't go there. But there were two concurrent issues right now. One is the authority condemned a sliver of property to access the pump station. That's going to be a driveway, and the owner of that property, Rafferty Subaru, has challenged that condemnation. As far as that litigation goes, the court in media, that what we call the Court of Common Pleas, ruled in the authority's favor. The Commonwealth Court, which is the first level of appeals for local government entities and generally governmental entities in Pennsylvania, ruled in the authority's favor as well. In Pennsylvania, you have to request that the Supreme Court hear something. You don't have a right to have the Supreme Court hear something necessarily. At this point, they haven't filed that. Instead, they asked the Commonwealth Court to rehear the case. So that's the status of that piece of the litigation. Additionally, there's a land use process with the township that's called conditional use, and the township requires conditional use approval to build a road in areas that have slopes over 15%, basically. And there are slopes over 15% here. We presented our case to the township. Township found in the authority's favor with that and gave it authorization to build these roads in the steep slope. And the Rafferty Subaru has filed an appeal to that as well. That one is sort of sitting dormant right now, and I think we'll have to see how that progresses. Now, you hear all this legal action going on, and I'm sure it causes a lot of concern, because particularly if you don't deal with the legal system very much. We're of the opinion that we have the right to file what's called a precipice for a writ of possession at this point, which would give us possession of the easement we acquired. Obviously, the authority would have to proceed at its own risk at that point, which meant that if the Raffertys were ultimately successful on one of their appeals, then the authorities would have some costs involved. But I think the board is willing to take that risk at this point, because they know, particularly in Florida Park, this is something that the residents desperately need. So that's really the status. I think Steve was going to take some questions at the end, but since I'm standing up here, if you have questions about the procedure or where we sit legally, I'm happy to take a swing and answer them, or, you know, if you want me to come back up later, something pops into your head, I'm happy to do that as well.
If you can.
Just a fast one right now.
Yep.
I got a couple other questions I wanted to ask later on. My name's Jerry Bouchon. I live in Florida Park, 4418 Fairview. With the thing with Rafferty, is that part of what we would call eminent domain that you're taking? Trying to take the property?
It is. So that we've condemned an easement across the Rafferty property, and I don't know if you're familiar with the property, but at the back of the lot, there's a retaining wall, and then there's an area that's sort of above the retaining wall. And the easement travels across that adjacent to the old Masters property. So yes, that it's a very short in the scheme of the entirety of the driveway easement area that traverses just a corner of that property.
I have a bunch of other questions Steve would like to ask, but I was wondering, should I wait till later or continue now? Not legal, what's going on with the sewer authority with prices and stuff like that?
Yeah. If it's not legal oriented for right now, if you can just hold off, because I think we're gonna talk
do the
about a
legalities.
couple other
Okay,
things. So yeah, if it's legal oriented, then I'm happy for us to take questions now.
Marie Richards, Florida Park. The
Right.
legal fees that are accumulating with this, will that be included in the cost that we're gonna have when we put the sewers through?
So well, it's more of a budgeting question, so I don't want to step on Steve's toes, but I think that this is really incorporated in the cost. You know, the legal costs have been you always anticipate some legal costs when you're doing a project of this scope. So they were budgeted for. If they're exceeded, I think it's probably pretty de minimis at this point, the impact on the residents.
One second.
I'm Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca.
I live in the township. What's the difference between now and then with the legal? As far as the money, what was the original budget? And now we're looking at 2 years, 3 years of legal proceedings. Now what is our budget? We're saying that it's minimal, but I mean, I'm just curious of the number.
You're saying
That's
how,
big.
like how much of the of this was anticipated in the budget, and how much of it is
Exactly, because we all anticipate nuances, but not years of legal. So I'm curious.
Yeah, I would have to get back to you on exact dollars, and if I guessed right now, I probably would guess wrong, and I don't want to do that. So if you really are interested, I can get you that information. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't recall the exact number we budgeted. I think it was probably close to about $100,000, and I'm not quite sure we've hit that number yet. The question was, aren't these problems usually resolved before you start the project?
Well, I could take a swing at that. I mean, typically, when you start a project like this, you have all of your easements in place. And I think that's really, when you say resolve the problems, that's what this is all about at the end of the day, is having all the rights to connect all the pipes and connect all the electric and connect everything to a pump station. And I would say typically that's probably the case. And I wasn't the solicitor at the time the prior board made the decision to begin the project. Anyhow, my guess is that there were some prior challenges to the sewer planning with the Department of Environmental Protection. And my guess is that those were going on long enough, and the prior board thought there was a desperate enough need that they didn't want this all done and then start the project, because then you're looking at an extra year and a half of construction after you finish all of this, so I think they wanted things to get going. That's my guess.
Keith Johnson, Florida Park. So this easement is only to access the pump house, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and the pump house is built, correct?
Is built.
So how'd you get there?
Well, the easement's necessary for day-to-day maintenance. So I guess, yeah.
There was a temporary construction easement that we had to get to and put in the pump house or the pump station,
Why can't that be used?
because it was a temporary access.
Why can't that be a permanent solution?
It is not a permanent solution,
Why can't it be?
because we weren't granted permanent solution with it.
And you're still not granted any permanent solution to anything.
Well, I a little bit disagree with the breadth of that statement, right? Like it's my belief that we have a right to a writ of possession at this point, which will give us the solution that we need. Now, I guess you want to talk about its permanence, there's still some challenges lingering. I don't think they're very strong challenges personally. I see Mr. Rafferty in the back of the room. I'm sure he'd disagree with me with the with standing here, but I think we're in pretty good shape at this point. Doesn't get you your sewer today. I understand, but.
Be able to access. In your planning, you know you need to get there.
Well, sometimes people will give you the right to use a route temporarily, but not long-term. And I think that's what happened here. Right, which is why they they took this route and filed the eminent domain action. I'm not sure I understand your question. Why wouldn't you acquire your long-term rights first?
Correct. You know you need to get there all the time.
I think that goes back to the question that was asked earlier in regards to kind of why are we where we are today? The municipal authority moved forward knowing it did not have that in place because there was such a big project that needed to be taken care of. There were parts of the township that we could move forward. All your pipes are in the ground. So all of that is done. Had we waited until all of this was done, we might still be in a position.
We'd be in the same place
We might be
today
still in the
without the
same
pipes.
place, and so that's the reason. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think what we're saying is, and we're answering the same question, is that the municipal authority felt it was in the best interest that we try to run putting the sewer in at the same time that we were trying to acquire the access. And that was the reason. We had access to put the pump station in, we had access to get everything in the ground, and we did not want to wait doing that. Holding up could have possibly increased the cost. And the power was coming from a different location. The line came in through the backside of Florida Park, and Dave, if I say this wrong, but the sewer line itself does not run along the same access that the power line is running along.
Question. So right now, are we kind of stalled with going forward at all until the court, everything is resolved?
Well, I don't know what you missed and what you didn't. So let me
I know
back
the
up a step,
lawsuit and all
okay?
that, But I thought you
Okay.
had, the township had an award in their favor, but there could be an appeal. Is that what?
There's an appeal pending, but we've requested that the court grant us possession of these at this point. You know, that's awaiting a judge's review. If that goes favorably, I think we're ready to pull the trigger and get the electric installed and get the roadway installed pretty quick from there.
6 months, 12 months, 18 months? Do you have any kind of?
If I had to guess how long it would take a judge to act on that, I'm optimistic that it will go to the judge that heard the case, because I think she understands the desperation here and that she'd act quickly. So I'm hoping a month, 6 weeks, you know, and then from there, Dave's already sort of lining things up with the electrical contractor and the contractor who install the roadway. As far as once those are completed, how long does it take to actually get this thing operating and moving?
It would be scheduling the vendors and manufacturers for the pump station itself. To get them out there for a day of testing. To ensure that everything functions properly, and once the testing is completed. Theoretically, the next day, the pump station could receive flow. So at that point, letters would go out to the individual residences, notifying them that they can connect to the sewer at that point.
So in the 30 days that you're expecting the judge to have some type of decision, is that the last legal hurdle?
I don't want to say yes and no, but I'm going to, and then let me explain. That would be there's two legal hurdles going. There's this eminent domain case. I'm sorry, thank you. There's this eminent domain case, and that would be hopefully the last legal hurdle in that one. Now, like I said, there's a request pending for re-argument of the appeal. But if we have possession and we don't lose that appeal, which I don't think is, I think there's almost no chance, a very slim chance that we would, then that's really the last legal hurdle, right? The other piece of it is that there's a pending appeal to the land use decision. And that's the stuff that I mentioned earlier about the steep slopes and the building in the steep slopes. That should.
So all the legalities,
Mhm.
you know, let's, consider.
Right.
Is there a plan B? Like at some point in time, as the years are going by, was there a plan B? Is there a plan B?
There-
Because all of us sitting here are in the same boat and just years go by.
Yeah, so there's the opportunity to run the roadway through a temporary easement. And then I guess Plan B would try to make that permanent. We think this is a much better solution, which is why we continue to pursue this one, and we think we're on the precipice of it, which is why we're not constructing the roadway twice and going through the temporary area.
So is there a time frame you're willing to say, if this thing is not resolved in 6 months, we're going to Plan B and we're moving forward? Because we're holding on for years here.
I understand.
So what is the stop?
I don't want to pass the buck. That's really a board decision.
I don't think any one of the three of us in this room can answer that question, because the municipal authority board would have to answer that question.
Obviously, they haven't. They'll have no answer. At some point, if it's futile, then maybe need to change direction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's futile. It's moving slowly, and I understand that. And I don't want to sound unsympathetic to your frustration. Because I am sympathetic. But I don't have the answer.
So if I can, I'm gonna give Mike a quick break. I'm temporarily gonna talk a little bit about what I think. Let's assume that we get through all the legal stuff here pretty quickly. And what steps would be. And I think it's been alluded to already that as soon as we get the pump station up and operational, Dave's already talked to the contractor. They're ready to start. I think they said they could start within 2 weeks of pretty much any time we give them the direction to go. And so they're ready to do that. And the board is looking at alternatives if we have to get this going. The one thing that I would say is that as soon as it gets connected and it gets tested, we're ready from an administration standpoint to start sending out the letters. I think some of the questions that have been asked that I want to make sure that you're all aware of the answers. One is that the municipal authority is not changing the cost for the tap-in fee during this time. And so they've not done that. They're wanting to allow you to get hooked up before any changes go into effect like that. I would say that if you don't hook up, if you don't pay the tap-in fee within the time frame, it is going to go up. I know it will because we're going to be adding additional cost to the process. Excuse me, what it is right now or what it's going to go up to? Yeah, right now the cost is $6,950. $6,950. That covers just the ability for you to run the pipe from your house to the stub. That it's not paying for the pipe. It's just that connection. Excuse me.
I don't understand.
So yeah, that's absolutely.
Bill to have to pay for it, plus my taxes just went up and you knocked down an entire reserve. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, I mean, so understand this, that just so everybody understands, the question is, or you have to pay for everything. So I just want everybody to understand. The cost to put the pipe in the ground was roughly $33 million. So, okay, but wait a second, just let me finish, and then if you still have questions, I will stay here as long as I need to answer questions. So let me first say this. There are two different entities that we have here. Your taxes you pay to Newtown Township. Newtown Township is separate from the municipal authority. And so you have two different entities. As I mentioned, when we first started, I serve as the township manager. I also serve as the operations manager for the municipal authority. When you pay your taxes, you are paying taxes to the township. That does not cover any costs related to the sewer system that is operated in Newtown Township. The sewer system is operated and managed by the municipal authority, which meets here in this building, but it's a separate board. The Board of Supervisors appoints the members to that board, but once they're elected or once they're appointed, those members of the municipal authority board have the responsibility to take care of the sewer needs of the township. And it's a separate organization. The Board of Supervisors does not really have any say other than who they appoint to the board. And they do get, and just for full clarification, they do get to determine whether or not their bond was taken. They have to approve the bond that was taken, but that's really it at that point. So then the second question I think you asked was related to the cost of connecting. So the $6,950, if you take that, I forget, was it 1,800 connections that we thought were total? Somewhere in that range. If you take that and you times that out, it is nowhere near $33 million. It's not even close. There were no grants for us to do this project. There was no grants that were for this project. We have applied for grants for some things. We have not gotten any that I know of up to this point. We've applied for another one recently for another project we're trying to do for the sewer authority, and we have not heard back on that. But for this particular project, there were no grants. And at the time, I believe at the time in which we went forward, there were no grants that were even available for this type of project. And so, no, there was not, we did not apply. Right now, there are some grants. It's been, and mostly it has to do with the fact that the federal government has put money out there for the, I think you've heard of the ARPA type funding. There's been some dollars for these types, and really not even these types of projects. It's really smaller projects. Most of the time, when you're looking at putting sewer in the ground, there's not grant dollars for that. I mean, it's just particularly not for this size of a project. Sometimes they'll do it for doing some repairs in areas, but not for putting usually new in. And that's just how it is. We would have been glad to apply if there would have been an ability to do so. I think your second, so the 6950 that I talked about is what we said we needed as the first round to help us get through the process, to start making the payments on the bond, which we're already doing. We're already started making payments on the bond. And then there is cost that you pay when you have usage of the system, right? We do it based off of how much water you get. You have an aqua bill typically, unless you are on a well system. If you're on a well system, there's a flat rate. But if you're getting that usage, we have a price per 1,000 gallons, just like Aqua does. And then in addition to that, there are some other parts of the bill, and one of them will be debt retirement.
Glad you brought that up about parts per bill, because on the septum, on the sewer management, I got a letter dated September 2021. And it states that you would be charging the people of the township $11.32 per 1,000 gallons. Okay. And in the letter, it says, they're telling us that you'll be charged for a minimum of 5,000 gallons a quarter.
Okay.
So I'm a disabled veteran living by myself alone. Say I only get 2,000 or 3,000. You're still going to charge me for 5,000 gallons. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, isn't that like extortion?
That-
Isn't it extortion?
But
Because
there's
I'm not getting what I'm paying for.
There is a minimum usage in regards to, there's costs that are part of servicing, whether there's 1 gallon of sewage that goes through, or whether there's 100,000 gallons of sewage that goes through.
Right now, you also say that if I'm hooked up to Aqua, you're going to charge me $55, $56.60 for a quarter. For the
Okay.
sewer. All right. Now, I'm on well water. If I don't hook up with my well water, you're going to charge me $232 a quarter instead of $56 a quarter, as per this letter.
Yes. So
Right,
let
now-
me first go here. Let me
I'll talk about
explain.
the meter.
Huh?
I was going to talk about the meter.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the option.
Now, my option next is, which I would like to do, is I would get the meter installed into my well water, so you can know how much water I'm pumping from my well into your septic system.
Correct.
Now, if I do that, are you gonna charge me the $11.32 as per the people with sewer from the Aqua?
Yes.
I can hold you accountable to stating that right now.
Well, let me say, let me say this, 2 things. One is being recorded. Today, that is the municipal authority's position. I can't, if
Oh, that's
the,
today.
if the municipal authority's position changed, I can't control that. But right now, that is how it's set. Yeah.
You are the operation manager of the municipal authority.
That is correct, but I don't make all the decisions. I do what we're asked to carry out, I carry it out.
Because I would want the well meter put
Yes,
in, so I
okay.
could get the same rate as all the other individuals.
Sure,
throughout the
absolutely.
township.
I would recommend that.
Now, while we're here, on 10/26, I received a email from Mr. Porter
Okay,
in regards to My property has never been restored back to its original condition since the beginning of time. At the last meeting that we had up here, I did talk to Mr. Porter after the meeting, and he told me, Jerry, as it stands right now, the property would be restored to its original state. It won't be. Your property will not be restored to any original estate until all this stuff with the municipal authority is taken care of. So now this has been over 3 years that I've been dealing with. I got 125 yards of forsythia that they ripped out. I got pine trees that was ripped out. I got all kinds of property that ripped my grass. It was not restored from floods and everything. Dave's been over to my house. He knows my situation and he's been there and seeing what's going on. Yeah, I've been washed out several times, without a doubt. I had the township there with the backhoes, and Dave's seen the equipment that they use. I'm just wondering, why do I have to wait so long? And I've had 3 other emails sent to the authority and I have gotten nothing. No emails, answers restored. And I just wanted to say that I signed a contract with you people. I've kept up my end of the bargain of this contract, and it just seems like that you haven't, not you yourself personally.
No, I hear-
sir, I'll take it. That, I'm just sitting there every day trying to battle this, but with a shovel and dirt and trying to fix swales and everything, so my backyard doesn't get flooded out. How long does a person have to wait? Because I'm quite curious of that after 3-4 years. And Dave, you've been there.
I don't, Dave, is it something that we can take care of now? I don't know what the reason we're waiting. on.
You put in, you filled in one area with topsoil, then you put in grass seed, and then you put the hay on it. The grass seed that you put down had a fungus in it and killed everything around the grass seed. I said, this is great.
Which is pretty typical of other areas in the Echo Valley Sewer Service area. That the contractor was working on trying to restabilize. I know that there are other areas in the Florida Park neighborhood through the off-road easements that we have punch list items that need to be taken care of. And what I explained to you after
Yeah.
the meeting was that right now, the general contractor that we have for that project has not returned to the job to complete that.
As
So-
from when?
As of
Year?
August of last year. So what I explained to you was that until we either sort out that completing that contract or the authority hires somebody else, unfortunately, we can't, there's not much we can do with addressing those issues at
So I'm in limbo. As it
as our way,
Well-
because there's nothing that we would want more than to have our general contractor complete what they owe the authority. But unfortunately, at this point in time.
Well, it's
I
like I'm
can't set a
saying.
date for that.
I signed a contract with yous. Can't I break that contract? Because you broke this contract with me? It's not, isn't there a limit of how long a person has to wait to see the place all tore up?
Let me say
And
this.
this neighborhood, here's another gentleman has another problem up to his ears in water.
Yes,
I helped him dig a cellar out.
Street dumping down my driveway every heavy storm. I fixed my front like 3 or 4 times so far, draining dirt in. Breaking out, getting seeds the next 3-4 inch rain. Well, I had a berm again in my driveway. I know you had a berm, and next door I had a berm. The people that blacktop the road to the township told them up the berms back on the driveway.
yeah, so,
Now,
so-
every heavy storm I get bombarded. on my face.
okay, so let me address 2 different issues and let me break them up as 2 different issues if I can. So I'm listening to you, and what it sounds to me like is we have a township issue and we have a municipal authority issue, and I'm gonna change my hat for a minute and put on my township manager hat here and say, if you will please reach out, if you've reached out to us and we have not responded, who have you reached out to?
Talk to, who's the road captain?
Harry,
Yeah.
George,
Harry.
okay. Let me,
know. The shop, whatever, I don't know who I spoke to there, never got any return.
okay, let me follow up. I apologize. Let me follow up on that. We did take out the berms for a reason that it's actually causes.
Driveway came up and pumped up high enough so it would storm, we don't have no storm drains. I had a
So-
berm from the whole front of my property to the whole street. The project was over the whole street and then over my backyard twice, which I linked out. And the end of the road was supposed to get back modified, was gonna be put back. They dug it all out and left, all mud. Towards north twice. I had to bring a triaxle load of millings in, close that off, and stop the mud and stuff from coming in the yard. The berms, the dirt berms that I had built, they never got replaced. I put all dirt, regrass, seed, all that. I
It's,
didn't ask
So I think we have two different issues. And so well,
Mr. Neese, I went through the township also. I've had the township at my house and everything. And I've had the road captain there, and he went and took the matter higher up, and it went up to your desk. And you also sent a email over to Mr. Porter,
mhm.
and your email was never, as per, I got the copy of it in my phone. That was, his email was never returned to you. So it's another limbo, and I don't mean no disrespect to you, David, or anything else like that. I'm just telling the facts that I have,
Okay.
that I've been told.
Okay, so here's what I'll say, the roadway and the stormwater issue, the township is addressing separately. And so we do have the township engineer, it's not Dave, it's the township engineer is working on a plan to address stormwater in 4 of our neighborhoods, and Florida Park is one of them. It's Florida Park, the Heights, the avenues, and then what's Upper St. Albans are the 4 areas that we're looking at and trying to address.
No, I was just talking about the restoring of my property.
So, I know, I'm trying to answer multiple things here. Yeah, so, but let me, so I wanted to be clear that that's a separate issue and we're working on that in a separate way. Going back to the restoration, I've made note here. I will bring it back up to the board, that we can talk about this and start looking at whether or not we can move forward. I know we've been waiting on the contractor to come back and take care of some stuff. It's pretty clear the contractor is probably not coming back, and we should go ahead and take actions and go ahead and get it taken care of.
Quick question with the stormwater. Was the stormwater
If-
study?
Let me ask you this, if it is related to the stormwater, I'm happy to answer questions, but, huh?
Was the stormwater study done before the start of this project?
It was not, because it was
Why?
2 separate issues.
But shouldn't you have to do any kind of stormwater study when you're doing a huge project like that?
I mean, it's really 2 separate issues, and I don't know,
You started this project. You didn't do a stormwater study, correct? That's what you're saying.
So for the sanitary sewer project, we got 2 different earth disturbance permits. For 2 different contracts. One was the Ashford service area, one's the Camelot service area, which includes Florida Park. That's a permit that is coordinated and issued through the Delaware County Conservation District and DEP for both temporary construction, earth disturbance, and stormwater management. So because of the nature of a sanitary sewer project where you're essentially replacing anything that you disturb, there's a net zero increase in stormwater management, except for areas where we have pump stations or proposed impervious coverage, which we did do stormwater management basins to mitigate the volume and rate for those areas. But as far as areas that are in easements, the pre-construction grading was to be returned to that after construction.
Not accounting for all the trees.
Yeah, we can't plant trees on top of a sanitary sewer. Right.
Oh, but I also have a
Not
creek
necessarily.
I never had a creek before underneath my driveway. I have a creek running underneath my driveway now. And it's from, the guy told me what is called pirating, where the water is following the route now of the pipeline coming down from neighborhood properties through, from pressure and stuff like that. The water's following this. I'm saying, "Hey, this is beautiful. I got a new creek. Where did I get this creek from?" And I just had a driveway, just had my driveway done. You know, what kind of a peace do I have about this is not gonna start sinking sooner or later?
Well, yeah, I can't answer that.
You know what I mean? Yeah, take this out of my hand before I come up with any more questions, will you?
So So I want to, if I can, I want to go back and I just want to make sure a couple things that you're going to be aware of, and so on the process. So as soon as the pump station is up and operational, our intent is to go ahead and release a letter to you. The letter will come out and it will say that you have 60 days to connect, and that there's a fee of the $69.50, and I believe it's $7.50 for.
Application fee
Yeah.
of 500 that will include the permit itself and the inspection and design for the lateral.
Yes, and
Yes, correct.
so, and
69 is just a start. then you got
60, 60, so let me just go through it. 69.50 covers actually connecting to the pipe in the road, or with the corner of your property or wherever it is on your property. Then there's the cost that you will have of going out and getting a contractor. I know one of the questions has been, well, does the township and or the authority recommend contractors? We absolutely do not. And for a variety of reasons, we don't do that. There are some contractors in the area. My suggestion, if you have friends in areas that have hooked up recently, I would talk to your friends and see whether they were satisfied with those contractors or not. And I would choose contractors accordingly. Be very careful with your contracts. Make sure you're very aware of what the contractor will and will not be responsible for. So those things, really recommend you look closely at your contract, make sure that they're restoring your yard back to the level that it was prior to them putting it in and those kind of things. So we suggest that. Let me just real quick finish, and I see your hand in the back. The other thing that I would tell you is that we talked about that $69.50, the $500 that Dave's talked about is the cost to have his team come out and actually make sure what your contractor does works for you. And there's a reason that the $500, yes, plus the $69.50. The $750, I was wrong. I forgot that it used to be
500 for inspector.
the 500 for the inspector. And so the
No, it-
$750 is what it actually cost. We did a
It
reduction.
was $1,000. It was a $250 application fee and a $750 escrow. And that's typical for any area in the township right now. That if you're gonna file for a public sewer connection permit application, those are the fees that are required to be paid and the escrows that are required. Time out. Instead of having the applicants and the residents pay $1,000 because there's so many that are gonna be connected, we agreed to work with the authority to allow for a flat $500 fee across the board to cover the coordination with your contractor, the review of the application to ensure that it meets the authority standard details and specifications, and the inspection and testing of your sanitary sewer lower when it's installed. Correct, yes. And then whatever you have to pay your contractor to install the line. Right.
Yeah, sit down, Jerry. So if my understanding is correct, you've got a $33 million budget, or it cost $33 million. Was that your budget to begin with?
I believe your question is, was that our budget to begin with? That is the, okay. Well, then the answer was that, yes, I mean, that's what we went out and got the bond for, was a 33 million.
So that 6950 was predetermined before any of the work started, because I know for a fact that there was a lot more work done. Are we paying for all that road work that had to be done? The hole that was what, 30 feet deep up beside your house, Diane? My road was impassable for outside my house for 2-3 months. Is that money added on? So are we paying more than what we should be paying? Should it have been $5,000? Is it $69.50 because of that work?
So the 6950 was determined before we ever started the project. Is that correct, Dave?
The 6950 was started, yes, at the time we went out to get the bond financed.
Right. So,
What-
before a shovel was put in the ground, the 6950 was determined. I think that was your question.
Okay, so let's say I get my letter saying that I'm able to connect and I have a contractor who's ready to go. I pay my 69 whatever and I pay my 750, 500, sorry, thank you. Like, how long will it take the inspector to do their thing? And like, what is the time frame? Days, weeks, years?
It depends on how many applications we get in at one time. Typically, it takes us anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks to turn around a public sewer connection permit application. 1 to 3 weeks to turn it around to 1 to 3 weeks, yes, correct. To review and approve the permit, it takes 1 to 3 weeks. It's not to review it. It takes us time. It's not the only job that I have. So I'm just, it takes me about a half an hour to review it. Once I get to it. And it takes our inspector anywhere from 2 to 4 hours at the job site to do what they need to do. They check percent grades, they run a low pressure air test or a hydraulic load test on the line and make sure that the backfill is done properly. So right around there, you're looking at about a $500 fee. So it's a break even cost. Some take longer, depending on how long the lateral is. For very short connections, it may be a little less than that, but it would be on a rare circumstance, it would be less than that.
How many and like you have multiple teams working on this? Like,
Yes, no,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
we tip, I'll be honest with you, the number of connections that are gonna occur here, you're gonna have a difficulty finding enough contractors to service the neighborhood. So with the amount of permits that are issued and the amount of laterals that are being installed in a day, that's why we're able to knock that fee down, basically cut it in half, because our inspectors are already on site, so they go from one house to the next in one day.
okay.
So the question was, is it the contractor's responsibility to notify us to come and do the inspection? The requirements on the public sewer connection permit application, I believe it indicates that there's a 48-hour required notification prior to start of work, so that we're aware that the contractor is intending to do work, and we can plan our staff accordingly to service that contractor's needs as far as the inspection. They're also required to contact us for when they intend to, to need that inspection. Yes.
I just have a quick comment. Since the township attorney singled me out and I heard the buzz to the crowd, my name is Bob Rafferty, and first off, I would like to apologize to the residents of Florida Park for what you guys have been going through. But, and I'm not going to get into too much defense of why my family chose to do what we decided to do. There was a plan on the books in 2015, which some of your residents and the developer who owns the golf course called Deep Baton decided to change his mind on where the access road was going to go. We were blindsided in 2020. And again, I apologize. I've been singled out in the township by not just the attorney, by board of supervisors and everyone else, because I am the one that is holding up this project. I am the one that's fighting for my land. And I apologize that all of you are drug into the legal situation that's going on between us and the township. I would like to kind of clarify a couple of things the township attorney said. My understanding of the potential timeline is a little different than his. Depending on how different proceedings go, there's two current appeals on the table that we have appealed. It's my understanding that they could go 6 to 9 months. There is a third potential appeal that we could decide to do, which I have not made that decision yet. Which honestly, I have no idea how long that could delay things. I am trying to have some conversations with the township to see if we can amicably resolve this situation. Stay tuned on that. But again, I would just like from the Rafferty family to apologize to all the inconveniences and the delay that this situation has caused. The only thing I'm trying to do is fight for my lane. I've been a taxpayer like all of you for 45 years. And if they want to single me out as a scapegoat, they can single me out as a scapegoat. So I apologize. Thank you.
So I want to really quick go back to, as I was talking about the letter for 60 days. I see your hand up. I see when the letter comes out and it says 60 days, we know that there's no way that everybody can connect within 60 days. And so the question that always gets asked is the township going to hold you to that 60 days to get connected? We did not. We worked, it was about a year, I think, for everybody in Echo Valley to get connected when they were connected. We will do the same thing with all of those who are left. We will work through the process. We know that it just doesn't happen overnight. But that being said, you need to come in, you need to put your application in, you need to take those steps within those 60 days so that we know that you're working towards it. One of the other questions that has come up is, some have said, I've put in a new septic system recently, or I've done some work. Is there things that we can do? The township ordinance allows for deferment. If your system is tested and it's working properly, you can defer up to 10 years. You just have to have it tested every year during that time and turn the test into us to let us know that a third party's been out and has verified that your system is still working. The other thing, let me please finish. The other thing that happens is that if you were anywhere in that time frame, go to sell your home, your home has to be connected before you can sell it. You can't, that deferment doesn't go to the next property owner, it only goes to the current property owner. So I just wanted you to be aware, everybody gets concerned with the 60-day notice. Will there be a lien? Well, I think. Well, the fee would have to be still paid, the way that's said, the tap fee still has to be paid from start. And so if that still has to be paid within that first 60 days. You can't defer paying the tap fee for 10 years.
I'll say if you don't. Working and everything. And I sell my house 6 years from now. Is there going to be a lien on my property?
If you, so here's what I would say, if you don't pay the tap fee, the municipal authority has the right to lien your property after the 60 days.
I think I understand the question. I think it's, you pay the tap fee, you decide not to connect. Is there a lien on your house?
If you don't pay. Like,
Oh, if you don't pay the tap fee.
I opt out.
I think
You
that,
can't opt out totally. That's not an option. I want to be clear when. Yeah, so. So the way the ordinance is written. Once there's the ability for you to connect. The tap-in fee has to be paid at that time. And so that's when we send that notice, that will be a 60-day notice. When we send that out, you will have 60 days from the time we send that to pay for the tap fee. You do not have to pay for the permit fee or the application fee. That's the $500. However, if you don't do it while everybody's around, when we're doing it at that time, it will go back to the price of the 250 plus the 1,000. I want to be, not plus the 750, I'm sorry. So I just want to be clear on that. And then The deferment only is for you to run the pipe from your system, from your house to the connection point. That's what you're deferring. You're not deferring your responsibility to have pay the tap bill.
Steve, you were saying that. You were saying at the beginning of the meeting that the tap-in fee is $69.50.
Correct.
Now, after 60 days, you also are saying that it could change. You could charge more later on if you don't tap in now.
That's
Is that correct? You could-
That's correct.
That could even be higher than $69.50 after 60 days. So you gotta pay that right away, or
Yeah.
you're gonna get
Yep.
railroaded.
You've had your hand up for a long time. I'm sorry.
Mine's pretty simple. It's, if you know that the 60-day time frame is problematic and possibly may put somebody out of compliance to begin with, why don't you change the time frame? I mean, you're saying 60 days, but then you're saying you're gonna work with us.
No, I'm
So
saying that.
really 90 days or 120 days, why don't you give us something we can work with and say it's 60, and by the way, if you don't make it, we'll work with you. I mean, it's-
What I'm saying regarding the 60 is you still have to get the application filed with the township. And you have to pay the tap-in fee during that 60. We understand that from the municipal authority side, they have said, we understand that if you've got 100 people all trying to connect at the same time, there are not enough contractors to do it within that 60-day window. And so they're willing to work with people as long as we know that you have a contractor in place, that you have a schedule to do it. We're willing to work with folks through that process. That's what it's saying.
We have to wait to pay the $69.50, correct? Until everything goes. So. When
Yeah.
do we owe the $69.50?
You will get a notice from the municipal authority, actually, maybe from the township. Let me think. We send it from the township because it's the township ordinance that says that you need to do that. You will get a notice from the township that states that that basically the system is now ready for you to connect. And that's when that 60-day window starts. Yes.
I'm in the process of buying a home, and I did notice that there is something on the title already that gives you an obligation to reach out to the township. It's just saying that you might be responsible for paying fees, for sewer hookup and all this stuff. So there's already notices on the titles. Not a bad thing, frankly, if you're buying a house. Steve, I wondered if you could speak to what I've learned is possible financing through the state. And
Yes.
whether or not the 69,950 is part of that possible financing. Will there be any counsel given by the sewer authority to residents to be able to not have to all stumble individually through that?
Yeah, so it is through Penvest that is the possible financing. I would strongly recommend if you're going to look at that, there's information about that on our website. And please go look at it. I would strongly recommend you look at it very carefully because there are some.
Gotcha.
You just want to make sure that you've read all the documentation very well. The interest rate is very low, but the processing cost is a little bit high. I personally think. I know some options to go to the bank are actually, I know some people that actually went to the bank and did it, and it was actually cheaper. So what I will say, it may be different today now that the interest rates have changed over the period, because remember, some folks were doing it back when interest rates were still pretty low. So, I just don't even know what Penvest numbers are. I can go back and look at that. I haven't looked at it very recently. We will look at it again.
Look at the processing fees.
Yeah.
The other thing, somewhere in there, we talked, I already have a home and I'm on the sewer and I pay the sewer bill. And so I'm familiar with where we're going in Florida Park, say. But you mentioned that in the Florida Park bills or in everybody's bill in the township, there'll be a debt relief.
Yeah, so
I don't think, what's that about?
So let me talk about that. So if you do the numbers and we take 6950 and we times it out by about 1,800 connections, we're going to raise somewhere around, I think it's about 8 million, something like that, about $8 million. So there's a long gap between 8 million and 33 million, 600. And by the way, because we're paying it over time, it ends up being about $60 million because it's a 30-year note. And so we, we have to figure out how to set the rates to be able to do that. That rate will be applied to all users of the sewer system in the town. We are looking at it from a perspective of saying that we're aware, and the municipal authority has been talking about this for several months, and they've had a team working on it for probably about a year now. We are aware that particularly on the eastern side of the township, that's had sewer for years, that a lot of that area of the community is going to need major repairs coming up. And so the decision was made to start treating the township as a whole for the debt purposes and also for raising funds for the purpose of infrastructure, maintenance, and those kind of things. So yes, those charges will be over all users of the system. And there'll be actually 3 fees in your bill. You'll have the fee for your usage, what it is, what we pay for the processing. So understand the municipal authority is a conveyance system. We do not have a processing plant anywhere within the township. We convey either to the east, we convey through a group that sends the sewer to the eastern side of the county. We have another group on the western side that goes to the western side of the county, and we pay a fee to process through there. And so that fee that we pay per 1,000 gallons is used to cover those costs. There's also a fee if you're currently, you're like you said, you're already hooked up. You'll see a fee in your bill that's called an infrastructure fee. Right now, it's $5 a quarter. I believe the authority is going to take it up to $10 a quarter, with the idea that that money is set aside to correct problems that happen. We just have 2 of them right now, and the 2 of them together were about $400,000, almost $500,000. Just to give you an idea, when we charge $5 from every customer out there, I think the last 2 years we brought in about $80,000 a year. So it's not a big number, and so that's one of the reasons why it's going up. So there will be a debt service fee, and then there will be a infrastructure fee as well as your usage fee. So just
plus your $56 quarter for 5,000 again.
for whatever your usage is. And so I won't say if your minimum is the $56. That's correct.
Can you really,
Well, potentially another 10.
the debt service fee, you never really kind of gave that a number. It'd be everybody in the township. Same
Yeah, so that number is not set yet for sure. I'm looking at it. I think it's going to be it's going to be graduated over a 5-year period so that we don't hit everybody up front. Ultimately, it'll be about $300 a year is what we're thinking.
Paid quarterly,
Paid quarterly.
and then it goes away when?
It's a 25 years, I believe.
So we can all expect those 3 fees, one of which is our own usage. The other one is a $10 fee, and another one is a $300 fee a year
That's correct.
for 25 years.
Excuse me? Is added onto the base. Yes. Yes.
So I'm at the other end of this. My husband and I are transplants to the area, been here about 5 years. We built a brand new home 5 years ago, so I have a 5-year-old septic and I have a 5-year-old well. I don't intend to participate at this point until I have to. I think it's the 7 to 10 year period, or in the event that I sell my house. So are you suggesting that in addition to the $69.50 that I understand we have to pay, do I pay my application fee now and keep that quote in trust for the future when I have to hook up so that it doesn't go up? Or how will that be handled?
What I would say is if you're not hooking up at this time, the application fee would not be filed. So you would pay whatever the application fee is at the time.
At the time. Okay, so then with regard to this debt relief, I will not be responsible for any of that.
I'm
because I
not
won't be
saying
res-
that, I'm not saying that at all. I do not know that the municipal authority will not be billing for debt relief to all users or
That could
all
be a
potential
user.
users or all potential users.
When will they decide that?
That I believe we are going to present that, the final at the next meeting. It's been talked about for the last two meetings. But I believe the budget will be set at the February meeting, which is,
So if I don't sell for 7 years and I don't use it for 7 years, I'll be paying for something that I haven't used and will not use, correct?
you will be paying for something that is a benefit
Well,
that
what I'm
you've
saying
chosen
is I'll
not
be
to
paying
connect
for
to.
something that I have not used, nor will I use, correct? Correct.
You're paying for what has been put in the ground to benefit for your home. Yes.
So then, who's going to pay for the 69? What it comes out. But in my situation with, working with, I have 10 years from that point.
You'll, just let me be clear, if you have a septic system, you will be required to annually have an inspection.
Okay.
And that inspection will need to be turned into the municipal authority, but yes,
Who's going to pay the hookup?
you have to pay the hookup, yeah, yes.
It is just.
Wait,
You have to be pumped and then inspected, so you gotta pay the pumping fee, then you gotta pay an inspection fee. And that's what you gotta give you for the next 10 years. You gotta pump your tank for the guy to inspect it. That's the fee there. The inspection ain't part of the guy pumps it, that's a different guy altogether.
Yeah.
So I don't think she understands that. You gotta pay the pumping tank first, then you gotta pay a guy to inspect the tank, so it's cheaper just to hook up.
All right, other questions, please. Yeah. So I don't know of any, go ahead.
So the way the ordinance is written, there was some clarification with the prior authority solicitor. That the ordinance says that if the property or the dwelling is within 150 feet of the sanitary sewer line, then the connection must be made. So it's if your property is beyond 150 feet. Well, that's what I'm trying to explain is the way the ordinance reads is that it's the property or the dwelling. So.
All right, so our,
If your property or dwelling is greater than 150 feet, then you would not have to connect, but.
let me just real quick.
Yeah, your property and dwelling would have to meet that criteria.
If you just give me 1 second, if you'll give me property, okay, if you give me 1 second, please. Our solicitor needs to leave. So if we have a question that is asked after he leaves, that we don't know the answer to from a legal side, we will take the question, I will get an answer, and we will get it back out to you. So that you can so we can get the answer out to you. So I just want you to, he's not trying to get out and not answer any questions. Well, that's why we let questions earlier, but he does need to leave. He had a 4 o'clock appointment, so he's already run late. So thank you, Mike. What, you can leave anytime. People are leaving already. And we've been here for an hour and we will, I'm staying to answer questions. And what I'm saying is, if there's a question that I can't answer and it's a legal question, we will get you the answer. We're committed to that, okay? He has another obligation and he's gonna do it.
Is there the opportunity for us to be sent like updates periodically, whether it's how you get the phone system or like something where
We are,
like the legal situation? I know
Yeah.
once all that's done, we can move forward, but it's this legal problem that.
so here's what I would say. There's 2 ways we can handle that. And so what I would say is that we try to give a legal update almost every meeting as to where we are. And so that if you want to know that, please feel free to get on the YouTube and listen to the meeting. And then if we have something that changes from what we said today, we will make sure it gets delivered to those. And so what I'm going to ask Steve, would you do me a favor and get a pad that people can write their names and email addresses so that we can update? Actually, I'll just take my pad. And we will pass that around. If you'll give your name and email address, please write legibly. A lot of times we have a hard time from that, but we will do that.
So the question is, are the sanitary sewer mains deep enough that everybody can get gravity? To the best of my recollection, there may be one or two properties that may have to grinder pump, but for the majority of, not off the top of my head, no.
Will we be supplied the pump? Because I was originally supposed to be gravity fed, and then I was told I'm not.
Okay,
But the guy in the street that was digging, because they hit rock, said that we would be given the pump, so we would have to purchase it.
well, I don't know who would tell you it'd be different.
Out front for 3 or 4 weeks, they tried to dig down here.
If he was from the contractor, then he lied to you.
So I'm happy to stay and answer questions. I just want to make sure that we're not getting too many side conversations. The system was put in for gravity for most homes. I think that's the way we can answer that.
Yes.
There were some homes that we were unable to go deep enough to do gravity for
And
every
sir,
home.
sir, you look very familiar to me. Did I meet with you? Okay, so if I met with you and I took measurements and told you it's gravity, you can get gravity,
Okay.
okay?
Told me gravity too.
Okay,
And Fairview Avenue on the right hand side, they went down 26 feet from the road, they had lost rock to get there.
Okay. okay.
I had somebody out there shooting.
Are there, what I would like to do, are there any other questions? Are there any other questions that are related to the whole? I'd like to take those. I'd like to answer anybody's questions that for the good of everyone. If there's individual questions, Dave and I will stay. I will commit to staying as long as I need to answer all questions. But
Will there be another meeting for the other people who had priorities that couldn't get here tonight or like work and stuff like that?
so here's what we did. We did record it. And so here's what I would, if there was somebody that was unable to get here, we would suggest they listen to the recording. If somebody still has questions, and if they send them to us, we will try to get answers and I will try to get them back to you.
Or come to the authority.
Or come to the authority meeting.
Silly question, but just want to kind of get it out there. If anybody owns open land, is there any variable here? Is it all about residences, deeds? Is it anything, any caveats about deeds that have multiple folios of open land and all that? If you own open land, but you don't have a property on it, house on it,
You don't have a house
are there any responsibilities?
this time.
No, at this time, if you have a vacant lot with no improvements on it. And this is probably more of a Mike Madden legal question, but I believe the way the law is written is you cannot charge a tapping fee for a vacant lot.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Now, here's what I will tell you. Just so that everybody understands what the recommendation to the municipal authority board will be. For any connection fee that is either not paid and or is like for a vacant lot that comes in. Because we have some properties that at this point have not even been developed, right across the street from you. Should that person have the benefit of not paying down the debt? And I would argue no. And there's no house there, there's no buildings, it's gonna probably be commercial, right? I'm talking about across Route 3, the Marville property. So here's what I think is going to happen. For every time that we, and I'm saying this is the recommendation that I and the group that's been working on how to handle the debt is making a recommendation to the board, is that for every time that we have an increase in the cost for the debt service, that be added to the tap-in fee. So that when somebody in the future does, they're actually paying the higher tap-in fee so that it's fair to those of you, and I'm one of you. I mean, I live in Hunter's Run, I've tapped in. And so, we shouldn't have to be paying for somebody who waits 10 years to connect. And all of a sudden they come in and pay the lower tap-in fee. So that's what we've worked on. And so that's why I'm saying, I want to be careful. For your question, it's an empty lot. Each year that tap-in fee is going to go up based on what the debt service is.
I asked the question, I knew the answer, but I like the question because lots for deeds, some of them have multiple folios.
Yes.
Same deed, but 3 properties, all under one deed, and yet every one of those folios has that mark on it now that is about sewer. And
Yeah.
that's not a new thing. Yeah, I mean, it is a new thing, but it would make you think that if you had one of these lots, you would have to, that's
Yeah,
the way that-
you don't have to be tapped. I think we'll confirm that with Mike, but I don't think you have to be tapped in if it's just an empty lot. But just know that if you choose to develop that lot later, you would pay the higher fee. We're not committing to the 6950. I just want to be clear.
And that's why the marker is there, because it's an undeveloped lot. So rather than have all these undeveloped lots and have a bunch of different contractors coming in and cutting the physical sewer main, we've already provided that Y and lateral stub to be
One lot for the house.
for the vacant lot, yeah.
On this property.
Okay.
Here's the street, from somebody later.
It depends on whether the lot has an easement. Some of them are marked within the easements. Some of them are marked out near the street.
Are there any other questions for the whole group? Oh, see a hand back here.
Thank you. I just want to try to understand this timeline. We do not have the pumping place built and we don't have the electric built, correct? Before you take it, is that correct?
I'm not going to answer it, so I can have.
Okay,
So, because I don't want somebody saying they couldn't hear what I said. The pump station is built. The pump station is built. What has not been done, the electric has not been run to it.
okay, so we can't do anything until the legality is done with Rafferty to figure out a road. Correct?
We are working on a second solution to get the electric in now. I don't know how quickly that will be done, but we are working on a solution to get the electric in as soon as possible.
But Rafferty was saying that he has things that are going to be resolved possibly within 6 to 9 months. So I'm trying to figure out when you say go, is that going to be in 6 to 9 months? Or are we talking 2 years? We all have to figure out when we're going to get $6,950 put together. So I want to make sure we have an idea of a time frame.
So here's what I would say. The authority solicitor believes that we will be able to move more quickly than Mr. Rafferty does. And so I personally, what I would say is there was no intent to throw Mr. Rafferty under the bus in this, but I think everybody knows that this is the situation that's been going on. If you didn't, and you asked us what the court case was, it's a public case. And so it is what it is. But so just to be clear, that the authority believes that there is at least an opportunity to run the electric probably much more quickly than 6 to 9 months.
This is kind of a question.
So we're still dependent upon the legal system to do a few things for us to do that. But what I would say is when the solicitor was here, when he first said he thought a month to 6 weeks would be the time
So
frame.
he figured on 6 weeks. Our contractor could respond to mobilize to the site within a 2-week time period, so you're looking at 8 weeks. The construction can physically be completed within a 1 to 2 week time frame, so you're looking at 10 weeks. So if everything went perfectly in 10 weeks, we could test the pump station and then send notices out. That's the earliest possible that I believe that it could happen.
And Steve.
Not probable, but possible.
This is a question that almost doesn't need to be asked, but we do the bookends here. If it ends up not being 10 weeks, but it ends up being 4 months, whatever. Can people get a contractor and start doing it without? I guess, but then they do it on their own property.
So here's what we couldn't allow you to do. We could not allow you to make the connection because we have no way of processing the waste. And so, you know, what we don't want to do is fill the pump station up with waste and not be able to pump it, right?
Contracting for others, or you get a direction of drilling going on, not that anybody wants to spend that money. But my point is, are you prevented from doing that on your own property? Somebody wanted to do that.
Theoretically, you could get a permit and install a portion of your sanitary sewer lateral. We did allow that with, I think, the Talk Institute in Campus Boulevard had construction going on, and they constructed a portion of their lateral. They left a gap so that the building could not be tied in until such time that it was ready to receive flow. The challenge that most people have is that the septic tank is between where they need to connect the public sewer and where the house is. So a lot of times the septic tank either has to be partially removed, demolished, or wherever to get that connection made. Not always, but I'm just saying that could be something that you would encounter. The other thing is then you're depending on your contractor to come back a second time. So there's an economy of scale of mobilizing to the site on, you know, for one trip.
Right? I mean, people don't know how to sell the house.
We get calls.
Buy or beware, I'll buy it, no matter what.
Yes,
The letter comes.
yes,
Then that's the scary part.
yes,
Guys,
I know. I know. He's not tapped in. He is not. Our inspector responded to that property to verify that there is a cut inside and it's capped and terminated inside the dwelling. He is not physically connected. He did construct the majority of the lateral in that case, but he also has a permit for an on-lot disposal system that should the sewer not be available, he could theoretically install that and then connect up to the on-lot system. And they did that at their risk. Otherwise, the DEP would not have given them an exemption from sewage planning, which is another thing that holds up, you know, potential sale of a property or development of a property, because you need that approval from the DEP before you can pull a building permit. So, yep.
Yeah. Any other questions for the whole?
Clarify on that part about Oregon. Do I need to get a permit?
Yes.
Yes, you would need a permit to start, yes.
Do that at any time? Then just go back to your inspection. By a building process, you probably just walk the place to my home.
Yes. Yep. You would need an inspection at that point, and then you would also need a final inspection once it's connected up. Yep.
So you're saying one thing, you come in for a permit at any point and have that part done?
That's probably something we need to talk with the authority about.
Yeah, let me just say, because now we're gonna be having potentially the inspector out there multiple times for similar things. We may need to have a discussion about whether the fee could stay at the $500. So that's something we're going to look at.
I can potentially start. I gotta go.
So,
I get my permit.
did we? I see the tablet. I don't see the paper.
No, it's just a separate tablet.
Oh, it's a second tablet. Oh, I see. Okay. Yes. As I understand it, if the property, and I think it's easier to say this, if the property is within 150 feet, you need to connect. I'm saying the line, your property line. Am I saying that correctly? Dave?
Correct, yeah.
That's the easiest way to say it. Any other questions? When what?
When is this all starting?
Yeah, so I think. I understand. Look, we've been, the township, yeah, I understand. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really understand, because if you've been the one who's dealing with it, I understand it's a bigger issue, but I know when I started here 8 years ago as the township manager, municipal authority operations manager, if you'd have asked me, I'd have been standing here 8 years later, still having this conversation, I would have said, how's that possible? We thought we would have been done by now. And I realized that it was 8 years before that everybody needed it. And so I do know it's a problem. All I can tell you is we are looking for a solution to get the electric in today as quickly as possible. And we are looking for a temporary way to make sure that we can access the pump station so that we can service it, so that if we can get the electric in, we can get people up and operational. I know it's a problem. I've seen the problems in people's yards or basements, and we are, the township, like I said, has turned a blind eye to those things. We should be notifying DEP. We've chosen not to because we realize that it's not that you don't want to, it's that you haven't been able to. Is there other questions for the group? So when you fill out the application, you'll fill out the application. At that point, you'll submit your two fees, the 500 and the 6950. When you do that, once that permit is given back, it will say, here are the steps. But what I would tell you, when you fill out the application for that you're doing, you want to have your contractor kind of already online, right? Is that correct?
That's correct. And most of the time, the contractor will help you fill out the application with the technical data as far as the materials they're going to use, the pipe, the slope, the length and dimensions that they're going to construct it to.
So the question is, I want to make, I'm only repeating the question because I want to make sure that everybody hears it. So the question I believe that's being asked is, are the contractors willing to kind of work within the time frame of the township? Yeah, and my answer to that is most of the contractors are very good at that. There's always one or two that try to shortcut and short circuit the system. At the time that you apply for your permit,
From the time we asked for a permit to you to come out, is that property not under sewage? So I can't use a toilet or anything else like that? Maybe I'm wrong.
No, generally, when the contractor starts their job, they very rarely, unless it's a really long lateral, very rarely does it take them more than one day. So what would happen is they'll coordinate with the property owner when they're gonna have their septic pump out, because they have to decommission the on-lot system. And then until the time they get that pipe physically connected up. So a lot of times they'll do most of the work before they have to decommission that septic tank to give you the least amount of interruption to your service. So you're not gonna be without sewer for days. It may be a few hours.
A few hours.
Yes.
And waiting for you to come and do the.
Correct.
Yeah. We'll have to hope. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? How long are the permits good for? So I think the way we answered that in the past has been, we are working with your contractor. If the contractor says that they're gonna start in 6 months because that's the first time, we're fine with that because we know the schedule. If that answers your question. Any other questions? Yes. So the question about the application, you will receive a letter from the township that says that the 60-day time starts. The application is on the website today. The difference is that application, I believe, says the 250 and the 750, but for this project, we've agreed to do it for 500. So that's the difference. It is on the website today. And, or you can go into the upstairs and at the front counter, get it. I mean, it's there. We do it every day right now for other properties that are not under the constraint that these are. Other questions for the group? We wouldn't even take it because you're not, the application is actually for the connection and you're not connected. Any other questions? All right, first of all, let me say thank you for coming out. I realized we did this a little bit early. We were trying to make sure that the solicitor could be here for at least part of it to answer legal questions that you had. I am willing to stay if you have individual questions. I don't know if you can stay for a little bit, Dave, but if it's related to your own personal property, Dave's probably the best answer. If it's related to the process through the township, I'm probably the best answer. So if you have a question, I don't want to cut it short, but I don't want to keep going on if we're done. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Again, if you know of somebody that wasn't able to be here today, please encourage them to watch the YouTube, and we will take any other additional questions and also get answers back. And if somebody has my tag that has the email address